Welcome to the wonderful world of box art. Having great video game box art is a lot like having a really good book cover. A good book cover can entice new audiences, they can reveal so much about a book, and just like box art, often they have a specific target audience, theme, or demographic in mind. Just like a good book cover, it's important for box art to be somewhat visually appealing. And yes, this is a good book cover. Say what you want about Twilight, all I know is that this cover is calling to me and it's screaming something awfully emo. Great box art can really help to sell a game, and in that same token, bad box art can really throw off a game's marketing. I mean, this marketing concept doesn't just apply to books and games, it also applies to things like movie posters. I mean, you've seen it before online, those collages of like the worst, most generic movie posters where they cluster in all the movies together and it ends up looking like one single image. We got the infamous black and white with a hint of fire, bisexual movie lighting, and my personal favorite, Michael Bay. Thankfully, we don't see a whole lot of that repetitive color scheme advertising going on in video games, unless of course we're talking about war games. That's actually a pretty hard bullet to dodge. Might be a better idea not to put vivid colors in something like that. And we could have a long-winded discussion about the different types of video game box art and their overall purpose. Sometimes box art changes due to regional differences, sometimes when it gets a remaster or a re-release, and sometimes box art is just kind of bad right out the gate. Ugh. So what exactly qualifies as good box art? Well, I'd argue that good box art has to at least convey a message, like, what am I looking at? What type of game are they trying to sell? Good box art can range from very straightforward and easy to digest to absolutely batshit crazy. What were they thinking? Sometimes box art covers give us a clear message of what the intended target audience was. Who exactly they're looking to stop dead in their tracks at the local GameStop that will find their cover the most enticing. Obviously, this is geared towards a younger audience. This is definitely more of a scary game geared towards a teenage demographic. This one's really ominous and mature. I feel like I had to have an advanced mental maturity in order to play this one. Just look at the box. So let's take a more in-depth look at some good examples of video game covers. We've got Simpsons Hit Run. The box art is very busy. We know we can expect to see a lot going on in this game because it just looks like chaos. It's very hectic, but at the same time encapsulates that mischief that we've all come to know and love about The Simpsons. Shadow of the Colossus box art. It's mysterious, it's ominous, and it's a little bit chilling. Is it for adults? Can I play it as a kid? I'm just drawn to this dark, shadowy figure. Is this a horror game? I have so many questions. And the Borderlands covers. Someone's definitely getting their brains blown out, but it must be awesome because something about this arrangement just screams like badass, colorful, and a lot of mischief. This art style is making me think we're gonna have a grand old time, Mad Max style. And Super Mario. Mario has always been known to have some really great box art, ranging from minimal to overly detailed and super colorful and vibrant. These covers are just a lot of fun to look at and really exciting. I mean, who doesn't love a good party game? And then you have games like Chrono Trigger or Dragon Quest, where the box art is made by notorious artists like Akira Toriyama. Even though I've never played any of those games, I do know of Akira Toriyama from the anime community, so that draws me in because the box art is made from a familiar artist. If you don't know, Akira Toriyama is the brilliant artist who created arguably the best series of all time, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and Dr. Slump. See, I've never played these games, but immediately I'm gonna look at that and be like, Dragon Ball Z. I might want to give that a test run. I don't know why I ended my sentence like that. But the point is, it just draws you in because it's something familiar. And now that we've seen some very good examples of good game box art, we should probably take a glimpse at some of the bad ones. I mean, just for good measure, right? So like I said earlier, the goal of good video game box art is to create intrigue and draw in consumers. And I just feel like this next batch of game designs, they really missed the memo. First we have Snow White and the Seven Clever Boys. Okay, well, I'm not an expert, but I believe your covers shouldn't look like they were pieced together by using things like MS Paint, okay? Not only is this not Snow White and totally not a ripoff of Disney Snow White, But they also didn't tell you that the game is fucking racist. We also have the infamous Bester's Quest. I bet you're wondering, why does he look substantially more dead than usual? He looks like a mixture between Frankenstein's monster and one of the Three Stooges that kissed a killer clown. The art doesn't even match the game's actual design. It's just so bizarre. The box art for Batman Arkham City Game of the Year edition literally looks like the cover of a PlayStation magazine. I mean, what happened here? Like, okay, I get it, it's a good game, but this cover leaves so much to the imagination. Like, it's impossible to tell what sort of tone this game has, and all I have to go off of are all of the praise plastered all over the cover by other gaming publications. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, one of the greatest games ever made, Peridot. Like, damn, can I get a chance to decide? Plastering all this praise on the cover just screams some sort of desperation, like, man, they're really trying to sell this to you. And last but not least, everyone's familiar with that notoriously bad Megaman box art that everyone likes to roast in their videos. This is like a really bad design. Like, his legs look backwards, it looks like his butt's twisted to his front. When I think of Megaman, I think of a boy, child, robot boy. I don't think of whatever this is. And I'm shocked and amazed that this didn't have an effect on the sales of the game, but I'd bet you anything that with it being the 80s and having things like Blade Runner and Tron being the aesthetic, people probably didn't bat an eye at how weird this looked. But if it came out today, I guarantee it would be another story. Box art can venture into the territory of being extremely misleading. Similar to Fester's Quest, you can see the art for a game and have one expectation of it based on the art, and then boot up the game and be completely blindsided by what you're seeing, leaving you confused or disappointed. Such as Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. Decent game? Yeah. Box art? Misleading. You see this badass box art with Snake on it? Lies. Everyone had the expectation that in this follow-up to Metal Gear Solid 1, we'd be playing the entire game as Snake, picking up from where we left off from the previous game. The advertising, the E3 trailers, everything was Snake. Then once we booted up the game, it turns out you play most of the game as the newly introduced character, Raiden. It's a trap. It's a trap, and I think it was intentionally done by Kojima because with Metal Gear Solid 1 being such a success, how on earth would it make sense to advertise a follow-up game without showing the protagonist? I mean, imagine just throwing out Raiden everywhere. People would think it's a different game or wouldn't be interested because suddenly our beloved protagonist is gone. We don't need that. Let them be shocked and disappointed once the game starts, when they've already purchased it. Actually, Kojima is pretty genius, especially since the game was great. I mean, can we give a round of applause to Kojima the Thirst Trap? Speaking of misleading covers but actually good games, did anybody try that Home Improvement game for the SNES? Have you seen the box art on this thing? That art did not work to the game's advantage. If I came across this in the game store, I wouldn't even give this thing a second look. It just rubs me like one of those bland licensed games that aren't really anything special. Like, look how boring this is. It's just Tim Allen and his friend. If not for people online making a mockery out of this, I wouldn't have known how badass it was. I mean, look at this. Dinosaurs, and magic power tools. This is unfortunate because I love those like Aladdin and Lion King games, and this plays pretty similar. It's just too bad the advertising looks like a piece of shit. This one's actually really interesting. The US box art for Resident Evil 1, also known as Biohazard in Japan. You take one look at this and it's like, wow, this looks like a really epic, thrilling horror game. And then once you play it, everything seems to check out. But hold on a second, that's not the main character, Chris Redfield. Wait, that's actually Richard Aiken? He's not really significant and not really a main character in this game, so why did they decide to do this? I mean, it's cool, but okay. This next one isn't as misleading as it is just really freaking lazy. Box art has this tendency to change when it's gone through a remaster or re-release. But one re-release that really stuck out to me was the one for Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow. It's literally just a picture of the original game. There's a lot of Castlevaniaception going on in here. Konami's best, folks. Nobody thought it would be a good idea to maybe hire someone and come up with a redesign that was just as exceptional as the original? No? too much work? Okay, cool. It's so lazy that it's almost brilliant. And of course, box art can vary from region to region. The reason for these differences are often attributed to the fact that marketing teams are looking to make sure the game sells appropriately to the right demographic, and the target demo for games in the US might not be the same in places like Japan. Heck, in some cases, some regions just get overall better box art than others. The differences can go from minute to like absolutely ridiculous. What is that? In Japan, cute things tend to sell a lot better and are central to their marketing to consumers. Over here in the West, we tend to emphasize edginess when it comes to video games, and often our ads will highlight the badass, more serious aspects to a game. Crash Bandicoot, for example, and especially in the 90s, was heavily marketed as this cool dude, marsupial, skateboard, 90s, the whole shebang. Yet over in Japan, they changed all of the Crash Bandicoot box art to make characters look cute, approachable, and kawaii. This change continued well into the game's remasters, although the actual gameplay remains consistent, so I'm guessing they wanted to market these games as more family-friendly. We saw this same change from Japan to US covers in Ratchet & Clank, and here, they definitely went for more of an anime aesthetic, and honestly, the second box art for Ratchet & Clank looks like it could totally venture into like a spin-off of some sorts. Like, it's so adorable. He looks like a monster rancher. I just want to look at Spyro over here. He's kawaii as shit. Okay, someone desperately needed to be fired. How could they do this? This is like reboot graphics. It's fucking terrible. This is not alphanumeric. This is alpha ugly. So at the end of the day, box art is completely subjective. Obviously, some works are gonna resonate a lot better than others. That's true. Some companies put their blood, sweat, and tears into good advertising, whereas other companies can't be bothered. Like a good book cover, a good box art can tell a story, no matter how awful it might be. So the next time you find yourself scrolling down the games aisle of a GameStop, really ask yourself, does this speak to me? Or am I just horny?